Guilt is such an interesting emotion, and it often comes with the idea that we need to be forgiven for what we did, which actually isn't quite the case. Hello and welcome back to today's video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel. Today I want to talk about guilt. I've been in the position where I felt guilty towards someone else because I thought I've hurt that other person or that person was suffering because of me. But recently I had the opposite experience, someone approaching me because they felt guilty about something they did towards me. What was so interesting about that situation or about that encounter was the realization that there was literally nothing that I could do to help that person to let go of the guilt that they were carrying with them. People often think about forgiving or the need to be forgiven for what they did in order to overcome guilt. But I have found that actually it's about that person being able to forgive themselves. So at the end of the day, it doesn't actually really matter if the victim has forgiven you or not. It's more about, were you able to forgive yourself for what you did? Sometimes it really can be enough to hear that the person or the victim in that case didn't suffer from what has been done to them, that they weren't suffering because of it. And this can be perceived as being forgiven. The truth, however, is not that the person was forgiven. It is much more that the knowledge that what they did didn't cause any further harm or that the victim isn't suffering anymore from it is what really sets them free and helps them to forgive themselves. In other cases, you can go up to that person and be like, I'm so sorry for what I did. I really hope you didn't suffer because of it. And the other person can be like, I never really suffered because of it. I never really felt bad for what you did. It didn't really affect me. And in that case, it can be sometimes that even though the person, like the victim in that case, never really suffered from it, the other person still feels guilty about it. The difference between the two is, in one case, it's really about, oh my God, I'm so sorry for what I did. I really hope that person didn't suffer. Like the focus is very much on the other person and being, I just want the best for that person and I hope they are okay. And as soon as you know that that person is okay, it's like the whole guilt is gone and there's nothing to feel guilty about it anymore, because the reason for the guilt were the consequences to my action. In the other case, it's much more like, okay, I understand that the person isn't suffering consequences from it, but I still feel guilty, like how could I have been such a bad person? How could I have done something so horrible to another person? It kind of sounds similar, but I hope you're starting to notice the difference. In one case, it's much more outward focused, and in the other case, it's much more inward focused. So in one case, it really is about focusing on the other person and making sure that person is fine. And what you really need is the courage to go up to them and be like, listen, I'm sorry for what I did. I hope you are okay. In the other one, it's really about looking at yourself and kind of thinking what a horrible person you are. Why didn't you better? And just having all those expectations about yourself on, I should have, why didn't I? And trying to redo the past. While with the other one, it's much more, okay, I can't change the past, but at the very least, the person is not suffering because of it. With the other one, where you feel guilty, where you feel like you're a bad person, it's much more difficult, because even as the victim, there's like even if you don't perceive yourself as the victim, but just for explanation's sake, even if the victim is like, listen, I'm totally fine, but the other person still feels guilty, there's literally nothing you can do. There's nothing no one can do, because you can explain how many times you want to that other person that you are okay, that you maybe never even felt like a victim in the first place. It doesn't matter, because they still feel like they're a bad person. They still feel they should have acted different, and they still feel bad about themselves. And this is much more challenging, because there's literally nothing you can do. It's about that other person getting to the point of being able to forgive themselves, of coming to the point where like, okay, I'm sorry. I would do it different today with the knowledge that I have today. I didn't have it back then, and it's okay. I'm going to forgive myself. And it's very difficult, or not very difficult, it's actually quite simple. I guess the difficult part is getting to the point where we actually feel I really can forgive myself, where it's not just like, yeah, I know I didn't know better back then, but you're like, it's really getting it from the mental to the heart. There's one more way that I want to touch on how you can be freed of guilt. And it can be like a mix of the two. For example, the guilt is much more inward focused, like, oh my God, I acted so bad, or I did such bad things and I feel so guilty about it towards a person. And in some cases, it really can be enough that you walk up to that person and be like, listen, I did this, this, and this to you, and I am so sorry that I did it. I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry for what I did. I know I can't change it, but I just wanted to let you know. And sometimes being able to express that you are sorry, that you have grown, that you have learned and matured, that you will never do such a thing again, can be enough to free yourself of guilt. To give you a better understanding, I would like to share a personal experience of how I have had guilt towards someone else and how I was able to overcome it. And it basically was the last example that I just gave you. And it was with my mom. This actually happened a couple of weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, where I moved out again. I went back to live with my mom for a couple of months, and I found my own flat, and then I moved out again. It felt like moving out again for the first time. It was a very emotional process. It was like closing off an old chapter of my life and entering a new one. While I started moving, like packing things and, moving them to the new place, I've gotten like a really emotional moment. And I just looked at my mom and I just said to her, thank you very much for helping me and all that stuff. And looked at her and I was like, listen, Mom, I'm so sorry for all the times I've hurt you, consciously and unconsciously, for all the times I said and did hurtful things, even though it was never my goal to hurt you, but I was like so self-centered, so self-focused that I just didn't care how you felt. And it was super emotional. We both cried and she was like, listen, there's nothing to ask sorry for, there's nothing to forgive. And I was like, I know, I don't need your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I love you, that you're an amazing person, and that I am just sorry for what I did. For me, the guilt was gone. I didn't feel guilty towards her anymore. And looking back, I realized it wasn't about asking her for forgiveness. It was about letting her know that I loved her even when I was mean. Being able to express that to her helped me heal myself and forgive myself for what I did, because I was like, okay, she now knows that I loved her no matter what. So this is like my personal example, another way on how you can basically let go of guilt. I'm sure there are plenty more, but those are like the main ways that I have discovered and observed over time. I really hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below. And I'm wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.